Leonard Fournette speaks to Rich Eisen about Bruce Arians and the Buccaneers' chances in 2023. Greg Olsen says that Tom Brady might be selling himself short, and the Buccaneers have released punter Bradley Pinion. Let's go.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. We thank you for making us your first listen or view of the day. I am James Yarcho, joined by my fantastic co-host, Mr. David Harrison. You can find David's written work over at Sports Illustrated's BucsGameDay.com. I am at SB Nation's BucsNation.com. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82.
Hey, we thank you again for making us your first listener, your first view of the day. Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back Leonard Fournette jumped on the phone recently with Rich Eisen of the Rich Eisen Show to discuss several things. And we're going to share some clips of that conversation here, along with our thoughts, what the running back had to say. And we're going to start off the conversation, James, the way that Rich and Leonard started off their conversation, with the now infamous or famous story of Tom Brady calling him while he was taking a free agent visit with the hated New England Patriots.
So, Leonard, one of my favorite, stories that I've heard in the past several months, I'll be honest, was the story that you received a text from Tom Brady when you were on a free agent's visit to New England. Is that a true story, the text that he sent you while you were on
Yeah, that's true.
So can you tell that story, Leonard, about that from your perspective?
Nah, so, at this moment, at this time, I was a free agent. Didn't know if I was going to return back to the Bucs or not. Future was uncertain. So I just went around shopping, see what teams had in store for me. And when I went up to New England, he texted me. He was like, man, what your ass doing up there? Man, just shopping around, trying to see what's good for me, trying to see what's available for me and myself to provide for my family. And he was like, man, I'll call you back. So next thing you know, Tampa called me with an offer. And, there it was.
So, did Tom Brady call like Jason Light and the Buccaneers and say, you got to get in gear here because we're not losing Leonard to my former team? Did that happen, you think, Leonard?
I don't think it was about the former team. I think it's about just me not being there with him, to be honest.
He's got juice. There's no question about that. And now he's got you. So
that is, we've heard the rumors and everything, right? We heard kind of the reports of Brady contacting Fournette while he was up there. That story's fantastic. Just saying, hey, I'll call you back. And then all of a sudden you're getting a call from Jason Light with a contract offer. That's wild. I have no words. That's just absolutely wild.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's not a whole lot of analysis that needs to go with that. I mean, but that, the story was fun when it was heard in the context that most people had already heard it. But now to hear Leonard kind of give the in-depth version of the story and the fact that Tom tells him, hang on, I'll call you back. And the next thing he knows, he's getting an offer from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just, I mean, it confirms what we all know and the amount of swing that Tom Brady really has in that organization. But it's just a funny story to hear. So obviously we wanted all of you guys to hear it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, something else that Leonard Fournette talked about with Rich Eisen is a question that all of us have. You have it. I have it. We've discussed it. Our listeners want to know. Bucs fans want to know, is this it? Is this the end of the Buccaneers championship window with the looming or pending retirement of Tom Brady after the season? He may not retire, but this is his last year under contract with the Buccaneers. So is this it? Is it championship or bust for the Buccaneers? Fournette talks about it with Rich Eisen.
And so is this a sense that this is a 1-year window for the gang to get back together, for the band to get back together? Do you have that sense, Leonard?
Man, you can say that. Yeah, you can say that, man. You know, we know our goal. We know what we want. So just working our tails off right now to get to where we want. You know, right now it's going to be starting with training camp. You know, we're familiar with the offense, familiar with our teams, our coaches. So it's all about competing. It's all about getting better, and that's what we're going to do.
How is it?
All right, so there's Leonard Fournette talking about the question of is this it? Is this the last year? And Leonard, you know, he kind of starts off and says you could say that, you know, you could say that, but then the way he trails off, James, like this is where we're going to call this analysis, right? But really, we're kind of just looking into the way that humans interact with each other and speak. I don't get the feeling that Leonard really answered that the way that Rich was trying to ask it. Rich basically asking, is this Tom Brady's last year? That's what Rich Eisen is asking. Let's be real here. That's what he's asking. Do you have any insight on Tom Brady's career after the 2022 NFL season? But what Leonard Fournette is talking about is, you know, kind of like the whole 1 year at a time, trying to get better now to win this season type of mentality. That's at least what I take from it. Leonard, while he's confirming, yes, this is like the last ride or a 1 year deal, you know, all in this year or nothing type of deal. I don't think he answered it kind of the way that I think Rich was hoping he would.
I think you're right. And Rich Eisen is an incredibly intelligent interviewer. And he was trying to steer the answer to be about Brady. But, you know, the way Fournette, like you said, the way he answered, he is talking about, you know, he's already seen that a key member of the Buccaneers Super Bowl team in Ndamukong Suh is not back.
Yeah.
You know, he probably had an idea that Gronk was not going to be back. So he sees, you know, and Ronald Jones is gone. You see, or he sees that these Super Bowl champion teammates that he had are slowly starting to leave. So, you know, that's kind of where he starts with, you could say that, and then trails off into player speak, into, you know, we know what our goal is this year, and we have the players to do it, and we're going to go win, rah, rah. But yeah, I don't think that went the way that Eisen was hoping it was going to go.
Yeah. And, you know, and credit to Rich Eisen because he is a professional and he doesn't kind of hound Leonard into the answer that he wants to get from him. He moved on. And another part of the conversation came up. He asked Leonard, you know, the differences between Todd Bowles and Bruce Arians. And Leonard kind of said, you know, a lot of it, basically what everybody else was saying, it really hasn't changed all that much. But Leonard was asked about Bruce Arians' retirement, at which time Leonard opened up a little bit about the relationship between Bruce and him. And again, a story we've heard before, but a Leonard Fournette perspective that is a little bit fresher than the story we had before.
And were you surprised that Arians stepped down and retired, Leonard?
Yes, I was. It was very unexpected. Nobody was expecting that at all.
So did you find out on a text from Arians? You just looked down at your phone, and is that how you found out about his retirement?
Yeah, I think he texted me a couple of minutes before and told me he was stepping down. And you know, me and him, you know, at first we had like a rocky relationship, but he's one of the best coaches I've been around. You know, so he's a stand-up guy, hard-nosed, old-school coach. So I love everything about him.
What did you say? When you first started, you had a what relationship with him when you first got there?
It was rocky because, you know, I wasn't starting, and like everybody knows the story. When he came to me on the plane, he's like, "Man, what do you want, man? Like, I don't want to release you, but if you want me to release you, I would." You know, he's just like, "You're gonna be a part of something special," and you know, that's all that happened. I got myself together, and we won the Super Bowl.
All right. Well, yeah, we did kind of know about the rocky relationship there, and the, you know, Bruce Arians and Leonard Fournette, the come to Jesus moment, if you will. And then you look at what happened. You know, Leonard Fournette says right there, he's one of the best coaches that he's ever been around. And Leonard Fournette was part of something special, and he became something special for the Buccaneers team and the Buccaneers fan base, and became that number one running back last year. As good of a season as Ronald Jones had in 2020, Fournette, you know, grabbed that starting role and never let go. And now he's parlayed that into a 3-year deal, and he's able to continue to call Tampa home, at least for the foreseeable future. And he's going to be a big part of this team moving forward, with or without Tom Brady. And a lot of that has to do with, you know, them overcoming that rocky start to the relationship, because Fournette believed he deserved one thing. Arians was doing what he thought was best for the team in another way. They sat down, they hashed it out, and you see where that's gotten him now. And I'm glad that happened, and I'm glad that Fournette's still a Buccaneer.
Absolutely. And I like the part of the answer really there where he kind of goes into the details of, Bruce sat me down and we had this conversation. And at the end, he says, I got my stuff together and we ended up winning a Super Bowl. And I really like that because people have to remember Leonard Fournette and Antonio Brown worked out together a lot during the offseason following the 2020 NFL season going into 2021. Remember when both their contracts were kind of up in the air, there were the Instagram photos of them working out together and all this other stuff. And it was almost kind of like this feeling like they were either both coming back or neither of them were coming back because they kind of tied together. And you look at the two players, and this is a peek into just kind of the blunt honesty of Bruce Arians. And look, you either want to be a part of this or you don't. Here's your role within it. You're either going to accept that or you're not. And if you're not, fine, we'll let you go somewhere else. But if you're going to be here, you need to be here, and you need to be what we're asking you to be. One player bought into that, and again, the words, I got my stuff together, not, okay, I gave in, or not, I just did what I was told, or, they paid me, so I did it. No, I got my stuff together, owning the behavior and accepting the role and then doing the best of what you could do. The other player, well, we know exactly what he did. One of them, again, has a multi-year contract and an opportunity to win another Super Bowl. The other one is apparently going to run a fictitious company run by a boxer that likes to waste a lot of money. I don't know. Something else very interesting with the conversation between Fournette and Eisen, though, James, that I'm going to have to give you some flowers on. Fournette mentioned about staying in Tampa and Florida and everything and how much his family loves Florida and all that. And he mentioned also love the tax-free. And, and Ndamukong Suh, when he was talking about teams and they asked about the Rams and the Chargers, he kind of mentioned, yeah, but California taxes aren't that great. I have long stood on this platform that players probably don't care about tax-free as much as we would like to think they do. But I mean, and Ndamukong Suh and now Leonard Fournette all in the same week talking about that tax-free benefit. So there are some flowers for you, James. I am not going to let you interject and gloat about your win. Instead, I'm going to talk to all of our listeners about betonline.net, a place that you can go win and gloat to your friends who don't let you or cut you off from doing so, because they're your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs. Get your bets in on the Stanley Cup Finals. The Tampa Bay Lightning about to rattle off 3 straight wins. It's going to happen. If you make that bet and it doesn't happen, don't sue me. You also bet on Major League Baseball, by the way. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is your fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf, all of which are more entertaining than baseball. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. Bet online, where the game starts. Welcome back to the Locked On Bucs Podcast. Thanks again for making us your first listen or your first view every single day. James, talking about Tom Brady retiring or maybe being with the Bucs, maybe not being with the Bucs. Retired tight end, former enemy of the state, Greg Olsen, Carolina Panthers, does not think Tom Brady's going to retire anytime soon. Speaking on the Adam Schefter podcast, Adam was asking Greg about the fact that Greg Olsen is now going to be a part of the number one broadcast team on Fox Sports, covering the NFL because of Troy Aikman and Joe Buck leaving. But really, he's holding a spot for one Mr. Tom Brady, who once he does hang up the cleats and the helmet for the final time, he's going to take all of his supplements and hydration devices to the booth and become that number one former retired or now retired former player analyst for Fox Sports. Greg Olsen basically saying, quote, I don't think Tom's career is over until he gets 10 Super Bowls. Anything less would be selling himself short, end quote. James, I took it kind of in jest, more like hey, go ahead and play 3 or 4 or 5 more years, and I'll just hold your spot here on the number one team on one of the best broadcasting networks around while you do that. What do you think about the comments here by Greg? And I mean, let's talk about this. Is it possible that Tom could play for up to 3 to 5 more seasons to try to win some more Super Bowls?
To your first point, I also believe that it was said a little bit in jest, but I also think he might be semi-serious because Tom Brady physically right now, as we see him, we know he's still going to be playing at an elite level in 2023. So he has the opportunity to win his 9th. So then you get into that competitiveness, right, that Tom Brady has, whether it's with Tampa, whether it's with Miami, whether it's with another franchise somewhere else, is he going to be tempted to compete one more year to try to get one ring for every single finger? And that competitive edge, that desire to compete, that desire to win, that chip on his shoulder that's never seemed to go away, it's gonna poke at him. So maybe Greg Olsen can ride out another year or two on the number one commentary team, because if everyone remembers that contract that Brady signed, right, it was when he is retired from football. It wasn't starting in 2024 or starting in 2025. It was when Tom Brady is done with football, he will then enter this 10-year contract to be the number one color commentator on the Fox NFL on Fox crew. So
Right.
there is a small part of me that thinks, if the Buccaneers come away with a Super Bowl this year, Brady might just go for number 10.
I'm going to go down this rabbit hole with you. And this is a very dangerous rabbit hole to go down here. Tom Brady wins Super Bowl number 8. He's behind a very solid offensive line, if not one of the best offensive lines in the game. Now, again, we got to see how Shaq Mason, Aaron Stinney, and all those guys actually blend together. But on paper, they look like to be one of the better units, right? That's really what you need. Like when Tom was leaving New England for another team, we all kind of focused on weapons, right? Like which team has the best weapons. Moving forward, I think the protection is going to be first and then the weapons. Well, you got Leonard Fournette, who's proven himself to be at least an adequate, if not above average, pass blocker as a running back. Rashad White is known to be a pretty solid pass protector. Now, again, he's got to prove it at the NFL level. Got it, right? But if Tom Brady and the Buccaneers win Super Bowl number 8, well, Tom Brady wins Super Bowl number 8, the Bucs win Super Bowl number 3. Let's look at 2023 real quick. I know he's not under contract, but let's look at 2023 real quick. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have home games against the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the most likely Ryan Tannehill-less Tennessee Titans, and they're already A.J. Brown-less, and they have Traylon Burks, who showed up to rookie minicamp way overweight and has asthma. The Carolina Panthers, asthma's not funny, I'm just saying. The Atlanta Falcons, and the same level team or division finishing team from the NFC least, right? That's their home schedule, James. Their away schedule, they do have the Packers on there, the Vikings, who might be an up-and-coming team. But then they got the Texans. They got the Matt Ryan-led Colts. They got the Panthers, of course. They got the Falcons. They have the same place finishing team from the NFC West, so the Rams, but Matt Stafford's a year older, and he's not going to defeat Father Time the way Tom has. And probably the Buffalo Bills from the AFC East, and he's already 5-0 against Josh Allen, so why not make it 6? I mean, that's a pretty comfortable schedule in 2023 to get you back to the tournament. And if you come back and you're a little bit older, you say, look, guys, let's get some 21-point leads here. Let's get up quick on Justin Fields and Chicago Bears, and let's let Blaine or Kyle take us home. Maybe we finish with a 7-point win. Maybe it gets a little bit nail-biting at the end. We just got to get to the tournament. Again, we're talking LeBron James time here. I mean, it's pretty attractive. And if you get to the postseason, you get a Super Bowl number 9, I don't see how Tom doesn't come back in 2024, James.
It's a long shot, because I do think that Brady is starting to realize that he's about done. And what's going to be more important, achieving the fact that he said he was going to play until he was 45, or extending that out to 47, 48, 49 years old, in the quest to reach 10 Super Bowls? I don't know. I mean, say
it's a high brass ring, but I mean, it's a ring that like he could start to see some of the flaws in that brass because of how close he gets to it.
I would say it's less likely than Rob Gronkowski coming out of retirement this season to rejoin the Buccaneers. And that is something that Drew Rosenhaus mentioned could happen, that Gronk still could come back in this season, even though Gronk, we talked about it on the last show, he's hung him up, he's done. But look, here's my take on Gronk. I would love to be, the guy that's like, oh, he's definitely going to be back. He's definitely going to be back. if Gronk doesn't return by the first week of December, he probably shouldn't return at all. And the reason I say that is something that you alluded to, David, in the first segment. It took him a little while to get his legs back under him after sitting out of football for a year.
Right.
Well, now you're entering an NFL with fresh legs and you haven't taken all the beatings all season long, but it's going to take you a few weeks to get your legs under you. So you're probably not going to be effective other than being a decoy until the playoffs begin. So it's going to take you that 2, 3, 4 weeks to really get back into football shape and to truly become effective. So if you're not back by the beginning of December, then if you're coming back in week 16 or week 17 and expecting to be the old school Gronk and dominating in the playoffs, it's not going to happen, and it's going to be a waste of everybody's time, and it might actually hurt the Bucs more than it helps it.
Yeah, I mean, beyond just the impact it could have on the Buccaneers, obviously it's also going to have an impact on Cam Brate, right? He's going to come into this thing as the starting tight end, and again, situations have to unfold still, but if you get into like the December edge of things and you're the number 1, number 2 seed in the NFC, I mean, look, Cam Brate's an unselfish player, but human beings are still human beings. How is Cam Brate going to feel? I mean, this dude has been through, at one point he was actually a New Orleans Saint. Like, he wasn't even on the team anymore. He comes back. He does pretty well. He sees the team draft O.J. Howard in the first round. Well, he's outlasted him on the team. And then Rob Gronkowski comes in. Cam almost gets bumped down to number 3 when Rob initially comes in, eventually moves back into number 2 because of other situations. Now he's back to number 1. Now you're going to bring Gronk back in. I think publicly Cam is going to say all the right things, but I think internally there's got to be at least a little bit of grumble in that situation if it happens.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a slight level of frustration, but I also think that Cam Brate is one of those team first guys, no matter what. So he would probably be okay. He might be a little frustrated, but I think ultimately he'd be okay. The other question is, what kind of impact would it have on the development of Cade Otton, who now we kind of expect to be a relatively big part of the offense since there is no Gronk. Cade Otton is going to be the 1B to Brate's 1A, and I'm excited to see that unfold because I think Cade Otton has some really, really high potential. But if you have Gronk coming in, well, he's got to get back he's got to get the reps, he's got to get the snaps, he's got to get all of those things. Where does that leave Cade Otton? And if Cade Otton is clipping, then you could run into an issue where now all of a sudden you're taking away a weapon in order to try to get a different weapon just in shape. And it could end up being detrimental. So that kind of is what it is.
Yeah, and of course you talked about December football kind of being that cutoff for Gronk to come back if he is going to come back. For me, really it's Thanksgiving, but in reality it's the bye week. So November 13th, the Buccaneers play the Seattle Seahawks in Germany. November 14th, they're on their bye week. I think Gronk, you need to be back that week, and basically maybe you get some side work in with the coaches and meetings and start going over some new wrinkles in the offense and stuff like that. And then you get that next week of practice. The next game is against the Cleveland Browns, November 27th. Maybe you play, maybe you don't. Maybe it's just kind of more your time. Get the pads back on, get into practice, do all that stuff. But it kind of fits your timeline because now in December, maybe you've got your wheels rolling a little bit. So I would kind of say that for me, the cutoff needs to be the bye week. You need to be back by then. But the Buccaneers also had a cut off. They cut a player off their roster, James. And we're going to talk about that here in just a moment.
Wrapping things up here on a Friday edition of Locked On Bucs Podcast, and bye weeks. Bye Bradley. The Buccaneers made a roster move that many were expecting. David, you and I talked about it following the NFL draft. But they have officially released punter Bradley Pinion. The Bucs, of course, drafted Georgia punter Jake Camarda in the 4th round. Everybody remembers my reaction that was my favorite draft pick of all time. But Pinion definitely had a disappointing 2021 season. But he was also battling a torn hip labrum and a hip impingement. So he was far from 100%. It showed. Kudos to him for trying to fight through it and play and help his team. But obviously that hurt his chances of staying with the team. Now, this move frees up about $2 million in cap space. Bradley Pinion was owed 2.9, but Jake Camarda would be part of the top 51 that counts against the cap, making $895,000. So you basically have $2 million in cap space that you gain. That leaves the Bucs with about $12 million in total cap space, obviously none of which is being used for Gronk, and less than $1 million needs to be used for the signings of both Logan Hall and Cade Otton.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a move that you expected to come. I honestly, I think I want to say kudos to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, honestly, for making the move this far out from training camp. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they could have waited. Honestly, they could have held him into camp. The team was well within their right to say, listen, we're going to keep you on board because I don't know, what if Jake slips in the shower? Like, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but things happen. What if he steps off a curb tomorrow and twists his ankle? Like, things happen. So we want to protect ourselves and all these things. That's part of the business. And Bradley really doesn't have a leg to stand on, not to be no pun intended, but now he gets to be, he's a free agent. He gets to go out and he gets to find a team that maybe is interested in a veteran punter. I mean, I don't know what the San Francisco 49ers punter situation is, but that's where he came from. Right. So maybe he goes back. I don't know who, again, I'm not really privy to who all needs punters. I know the Washington Commanders don't need one. They have Tress Way, probably the best punter in the game right now. But, again, that to me, that's kind of the biggest thing. Like, yeah, they could have released him before rookie camp, mini camp, OTAs, all that. But let's be real. Like, the punter's job, I'm not saying the job is easy. The job description is easy. Get it as close as you can to the opposite end zone goal line without going over. That's your job. Go do that. Like the calls and the shifts, those don't really come from the punter. The punter basically stands there and waits for the ball, has a strategy on where we're going to put it and why. So missing OTAs or whatever with his new team, soon to be new team, not as detrimental. But I do think that it's a classy move by the organization to give him nearly a month's time to find a new team.
Yeah, and of course, something Greg Allman mentioned on Twitter is that Bradley Pinion passed a physical before the Buccaneers released him. So he is ready to compete, ready to rock and roll right now. And so being released ahead of training camp, when I did the write-up, I mentioned I fully expect the Buccaneers to bring in another punter for training camp. Obviously, the job is Camarda's to lose, but you still need that competition. You don't want to hand the reins to a starting job, no questions asked, to a 22, 23-year-old rookie when we've seen that blow up in the Buccaneers' faces before when it comes to those specialists. So there are going to be, as Mike Garafolo of NFL Network said, there are going to be plenty of teams interested in Pinion's services, and he's going to get the opportunity to compete to become the punter and kickoff specialist for another team in the NFL. I wish him the best of luck. I hope he's able to bounce back and have some 2019, 2020 numbers rather than continuing the numbers that he had in 2021. So that'll be, one less kicker to pay. And now we're still going to have to see how Camarda shakes out. And we still don't have Gronk, and it still makes me sad. With that, David, we are going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you again for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or view of the day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL podcast. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league, because an offseason doesn't equal a break in the action. We are going to be back on Monday. If you have any questions, topics, concerns, thoughts, random questions you just want to throw out there that have absolutely nothing to do with the game of football or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can do so by giving us a call at 813-444-5841 or send us an email to lockedonbucspodcast@gmail.com. Check out all of David's work over at bucksgameday.com. Check out mine over at bucksnation.com. And of course, follow along on Twitter at LockedOnBucs, at JYarcho_Bucks, and at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, be good to one another, fire those cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.